We are activating your unique self-discovery one show at a time. The Orchard of Wisdom Self-Discovery podcast are at your fingertips, just waiting to inspire and invite you in discovering just how awesome you really are and how to navigate through life in joy, enrichment, personal abundance, in mind, body, spirit, heart, and soul. All the people we bring you are here to serve you on your journey of life. Do enjoy our next show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of An Author's Kiss right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I am your host, Sarah Troy. My wonderful guest today is Abigail Child. She is a filmmaker. She is a poet. She is an author. She's a creator. And she has been recognized and has received a beautiful award, which is about time. It's her due that she gets this award. And she reads the career retrospective at the New York City Anthology Film Archives. So she's not just a traditional filmmaker. Would you call her avant-garde? We were talking about chaos before we came on the show, a little chaos, and there's clarity in chaos, but a totally different view on filmmaking and on expressing of her art. She says at times playful and others intensely provocative, and cinema of Abigail Child has been a cornerstone of the American avant-garde film movement since the late 1970s. Poet, visual artist, filmmaker, and absorbed the best mentors like Jonas Mekas and experimental icons like Marie Menken and a few others. And she has been a trailblazer in the LGBTQIA artists alongside fellow game changers like Barbara Hammer and Yvonne. The work is emotionally probing, intellectually challenging, visually arresting. Every image is a masterful flourish filled with power. Each sound is an alarm, a call to arms for each of us to march forward in our own personal journey. A destroyer of boundaries, a builder of bridges, a work traverses the finest experimental cinema and the very best of documentary form. The fantastic works and the loving created in the long overdue career of retrospective Abigail Child. So we are going to be celebrating this wonderful art. And there is actually here on her show posting, when you go to selfdiscoverymedia.com, you go to search engine, you just put in her name, Abigail Child, and her whole show posting will come out if you've come just to it through audio or video. You will also see that there is a wonderful little video here, a robotic video of the trailer of Origin of the Species, and a lot of other works that she has here, which I invite you to go and look at her books and everything else. But I love it when people know there isn't a box, never mind isn't doing anything in the box, just recognizes there is no box unless it's one you want to stand on. Welcome to the show, love.
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction. Beautiful. And we were just talking before about chaos in Vancouver Island,
Mhm.
both of which I love. So there you go.
Yes, that's probably
Um,
why I love Vancouver Island, because I am chaos.
but also it's very peaceful there.
Yeah.
And I was going to say that when I was there with a bunch of poets from the Western Front,
Hmm.
and was in the 90s, but good memories. So.
Mm. And there is a good vibe here. And, I know that for a lot of artists, whether it's music, whether it's authoring, whatever the art form is it's the vibe, it's the frequency, it's the, stepping into a wavelength or riding a particular wave that really kind of navigates their art. How is it for you?
Well, that's a beautiful way of thinking of it. And I used to tell people, creativity is running all around us, but
Hmm.
you have to be attentive to it so you can kind of pull it down for you.
Yeah.
Of course, in a way, that's where you want to be your whole life. But
Yes.
we do have things like we have to shop for food or cook for food. So is this purposive consciousness, but then there's this more artistic
Mm.
consciousness, I think. Although I would like personally all of my life into my art, but
Yeah.
it doesn't quite work that way. That seems like an aim for the future. Um, but I was just thinking behind me,
Mm.
it's three films that I made into a three-screen installation on narrative play, and they all are different lengths. And when they play, so they're never the same. When you
Right.
start up. They will never repeat their conjunctions. And the random conjunctions, because they all feature figures, as you can tell, I have black and white and black and white. Um, they really they push the idea of chance, conjunction, narrative, and that whole idea of actually letting the audience put it together.
Yeah.
Because the way we know the stories. I mean, how many times have you watched a movie and said, "I know what's going to happen," and
Hmm.
I try to explode that a little bit and make it more unexpected and make you realize that you're playing with genres, you're playing, and how can the audience think their way through? And maybe that was part of my original intention with art. I started out as a documentarian,
Hmm.
and at a certain point, I didn't want to put someone in between me and the world. I wanted just to talk to the world or talk to my issues. And that set me on a very experimental mode where I was trying to use the material to discover, what the world held for me. And just what you were saying originally is that that vortex of creativity is it's very exciting
Yeah.
when you finally see the work and you realize it it comes from you, but it's also from outside
Of
you.
course, through you.
And yeah, it comes through you and it's bigger than you. And it's
Yes.
when you actually can touch that larger than you that I find it actually, just a princely, priceless feeling. It's the moment when you know you're operating at some kind of maybe Blakean level. You're on a level that's quite wonderful and mysterious. Even when
Mm.
people say, "How did you do it?" I can talk about the process, um, but when it really clicks, when it happens, it's sort of outside me. Although I
Yeah.
will talk about process. Just Hitchcock used to say, if I have a script, I don't even have to do the film, and I'm the opposite of that. It's
Right.
the process itself that's fun. I have ideas, but I don't know how to get there, and
Mm.
it's in the process of doing the work that I discover ways to get to what I'm looking at.
Well, that's when you allow the allowing, the the
Yeah.
the channeling, the downloading, what anybody wants to call it.
Yeah.
You have the idea of the where you want to take it, but thereby the allowing then becomes the conductor.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, I wish I could be somebody that if I have the script, it's done, but it is not that way. It's hand labor, mind labor.
Exactly. But I think, kind of what just look at what's just happened at the Oscars. Everything, everywhere, all at once. A chaotic, beautiful movie.
Yes.
We really kind of really represents our lives and what goes on in our minds. And, we are multi-leveled people all at once. And yet we've been conditioned to everything is linear. Everything
Mm,
is just going straight forward in a straight line. And a movie like that reminds us that that isn't so. We are living past, present, and future all at once. And just from what I've seen from the snippets of your movies, I feel that's what you're capturing there
thank you.
is
Yeah, I do.
everything going on at once.
Exactly. Some of my work is definitely montage work, and I've had people say, "Oh, you kind of explain the internet or how we could deal with the influx of information before the internet was
Hmm.
discovered." 'Cause I was doing it in the '80s, in the early '80s, but I do think that's true. That our minds are constant churning,
Mm.
almost a vortex of ideas,
Yes.
and how can we get that in? And why do we have to be limited to linearity?
Right.
And also, what you're saying is so important because really, the idea of relativity and not knowing has been scientific fact for over 100 years.
Hmm.
And I also love Keats's sense, how can you live in the unknowing without miserable scrabbling over fact? And I'm paraphrasing his
Right.
quote.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's 150, 160 years ago. So it's like we're sort of,
Getting there.
yes, kind of catching up with our past, if you will, or
Yeah.
catching up with the scientific predictions. And
Mm.
even now with that with the telescope going out in space, which
Hmm.
is what's so funny to me. I don't know if you had that same feeling. This is a little off point, but I'm very rhizomatic. I will go off point and digress
No,
all the
no, no. This is that
time.
wherever the
They're not
two-step takes you.
linear. But the pictures that came back, they look like the pictures of of the cheap, copies of sci-fi novels from the 50s, don't
Hmm.
they? Those star things in the
Yes.
prismatic colors,
Yeah.
they look like, well, I've seen that before in a painting. I don't even understand how that is possible, but
Well, I
it
think as
seems,
you said, we're catching up ourselves. I mean, all of this has been who we have been, who we are from the beginning of time. But then
mm,
we became very humanoid, as I call it, just living in survival, flight and fight mode, and who's got the power, has the control, them against us. And we're still very much in that mentality, which we can see with all the various wars and regimes and everything else that's around there. But we are beautifully waking up and evolving to actually understand we are the universe. And we're here to
mm,
have this human experience. And when we
mm,
allow our universal soul and heart human come together, we're going to have an experience that transcends, that is
yes,
the coming together. And I think with movies like that, with the art that you're doing, with the science that has been predicted for a long time, kind of
yeah,
now coming into, I get what they mean, we're beginning to wake up to the fact that we are so much more than this flesh, or than just the existence that we are living of just survival, and that we're wondrous creatures. And I love the unknown because it's an invitation to inquire.
you are so right. You are so right. And very optimistic, because you could also say with my origin film, there's, two sides to the story, because you could also say we're building robots because we're destroying ourselves. And
Right.
will be what will exist past us, which would be a pity, because I agree with you in terms of human endeavor. I mean, it may, I remember in college, they said, oh, there'll be life on a million other worlds. And there may be life,
Hmm.
carbon, hydrogen, silicon, ammonia life, but it looks like we're in more and more random, that we're,
Yeah,
we're
we
a
were probably a
sport.
great experiment.
Yes, we are the great
Yeah.
experiment, or we may be, we're one of them at least.
Right.
So say we're the only one, but it does seem like we're very, very special,
Mm.
and all the things we've created historically. I mean, I was just flying down from Nova Scotia where I'm shooting my next film, and I thought we can fly. I mean, what a
Yes.
crazy
We
thing that we
don't have to flap the
fly.
wings.
I know. I mean, you go and look at the moon some
Yeah.
beautiful nights, and you say, I cannot believe somebody walked on
Yeah.
it. So there's magic everywhere,
Mm.
and how do you make that magic in your work, and how do you convey it to people, and bring
Well,
people to that new
I always
idea?
say inspiration is invitation. And when you inspire people to
Yeah.
believe there is more, or to step out of the linear creativity, or to invite them to investigate. We are investigatory creatures. We want to know more. What's underneath this? Why do we make robots? Yes, partly to kind of do the jobs we don't want to do, which is great. So leave time for the exploration and the discovery. I mean, obviously, this site's called self-discovery, right? So when we discover ourselves and just really what we're here for, what's our beautiful instrument? How do we play it? Can we
Yeah.
play it solo? But are we good at joining an orchestra and coming together harmoniously to create a symphony? And I think that's what our journey is discover our own beautiful instrument, and then find that collaboration, that collectiveness to
Yeah.
join and allow all that creativity to come out. I just wish that we would nurture more and be more exploratory on
Mm.
the what ifs, not the, oh, well, what if? No, the
Yeah.
what ifs.
Totally. And I'm lucky being in, downtown New York. I
Mm.
felt in the 80s, I hooked up with the poet, music, dance, all the non-monetary arts, the kind
Yes.
of time arts. And we were such an incredibly close group of people. Sometimes there'd be more people on stage than in the audience.
Mm.
This kind of moment before many of them became MacArthur Fellows
Yes.
or other things. But it's still a very lively community, and it is global. I mean, I do find art is the way,
Yeah.
just even talking to you across a continent,
Hmm.
it's the way people connect. You
Yes.
can go to Europe and you may not know the person you're staying with, but they will know your best friend, or something
Mm.
like that will
The five
happen.
degrees of separation,
Yes,
right?
exactly, within the art world itself. And also, what you're talking about was interesting, because I was making short films early in my life, in my experimental life. And at one point lately, I've been making longer pieces, and they are more collaborative. They take, I mean, I've always been collaborating with poets and musicians, but suddenly to do a larger piece, you're collaborating at a different scale with people. And I find that both challenging and fun to do. And it's also kind of great to be the whole program and not be on a series of shorts with
Yes.
no other people. And now also, as I was collecting all my films for the show, I realized it was so easy to collect the feature film shows, but the shows, 5 of the shows are groups of films, and so much work trying to pull it all together.
But exciting, huh?
It's very exciting. It's very
Yeah.
exciting. I'm very thrilled, and I think all the shows are very solid, and I'm going to have some virgin prints for
Mm.
some of the shows, particularly the silent work, and they will be just exquisite. You know, it's hard to get a film without scratches and just
Yeah.
have it really be that glossy, gorgeous celluloid, you know, with
Yeah.
depth. So it's a very exciting moment. It is, and I'm
Yes.
also excited that I'm working on another film, which is in Canada, in
Nova
Nova
Scotia.
Scotia,
Yeah.
in the Maritimes, and on the shoreline, talking about both climate and sociological change in the
Mm.
Maritimes, because COVID really exacerbated.
Exacerbated. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the problem, because really everybody from Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, they'd always been moving to the Maritimes, but it just became a flood.
Right.
And where I am, it's rural,
Mm.
and it's gotten less rural, you know,
Mm.
faster. It was slowly gentrifying, but it speeded up. And those changes, it's interesting. People in the town I'm near said they don't know people anymore in the town. So the changes are serious. I don't know. Are
Yes.
you experiencing that in Vancouver Island as
Well,
well?
I that's one of the reasons I moved to Vancouver Island 5 years ago, because I lived on the lower mainland, Vancouver area, and I just found it was just getting too dense. For me,
Right.
I'm a vibrational creature, so I just kind of felt suppression, too much density. And I came to the island, and I was always, every time I came here, I've got to live here one day. I've got to live here one day. And then I came, and it was like, aha. And I go over and see my children and my friends over in Vancouver, and I get back on that ferry and it's like, I'm going home. And
Yes.
I'm in Victoria right now, but I'm going to be moving to Nanaimo, which is a bit further down island, in actually more of a rural area of marshlands all around us and forests, because I'm moving closer to my daughter who's about to have a second baby. And it's a different vibe there because I'm very water based, but there's water around it, but it's a little different. But there is that drive I make going through the Malahattan, driving over the mountains and everything. It's always so peaceful. But yes, there are pockets here and pockets there that are becoming the box stores and the millions of houses being built around them. But we
Mhm.
still got our lovely areas where it is just kind of still rural and still space. And I think it'll be a while before we get totally saturated, but it is inevitable down the road, you know.
Right. It is. It is. I guess population,
Yeah.
which Canada wants.
Yes, but we've got other areas you can go to.
Wait,
um,
wait, wait.
there is actually interesting because my show I did last week was on community living. And she's actually a community living broker. She knows them all over the world. So when somebody's looking for something or looking for the right thing, she can introduce them to it so they know where to go to kind of, find out where their tribe is or what the vibe is of where they're living. And I think we're getting back to that. We've been so um, insular for so long, where it's just me, myself, and I, and I'm not talking to my neighbors. And then COVID brought that about where, no, now you can't go anywhere. And when you tell us you can't, that's when we want to. When we had
Right.
freedom to do, we didn't. Right. So
Yes.
now we're
One is
realizing, yeah,
dependent on friends in
we
some
need
way.
people.
That's
We need people. We want to be interactive with people. And one of my guilty pleasure is actually interviewing artists, because you're already coming from soul and your heart and soul is already dancing in your art. You
right.
compelled to do what you do. It is the very nectar and the blood of you. And it's the expression of the passion and what you see that you're sharing. And it's so many people are trying to get there to what is my passion? Where
Right.
is that connection to soul and heart? and
Mm.
they don't know how to find it. And I think artists are already there. The gift has already been
We are
given.
so lucky. I mean, I remember the moment I was editing on an upright moviola, which is a crazy little, machine that goes nuts and will rip your film. It was 16 millimeter. And there was a moment I was working the late night shift early in the 70s, and the red eye shift, going into an advertising company midtown to work on their machines. And there was this moment where I said, film is going to be it for me, because it's image, it's sound,
Mhm.
it's music. It can be document, it can be
Yes.
abstraction, it can be text, words, language, and it can be anthropology. Originally, I thought I'd be an anthropologist in South America
Mhm.
because I knew Spanish and I'd done some anthropological field trips in Mexico. In some ways now, I think I'm an anthropologist of
Yes.
the urban
Yeah.
environment, the
Yeah.
contemporary sort of sexualized body
Mhm.
or unsexualized body. And that goes through these last three features, which it was originally kind of Mary Shelley. I read a biography, and her story is so crazy.
Mhm.
She's 17 and she runs away with a married man whose wife is pregnant with their second child. It would be a shock now. And this is 1812.
Right.
So it's really a shock. But it was also, it was just very, strong storytelling. And I was in Rome for a year, and I'd said I'm going to do imaginary home movies of Mary and Percy Shelley.
Mm.
And it was so exciting to look at that, and then to realize that in 8 years of marriage she had 5 children. So she was pregnant 5 times in 8 years.
More
4 of them
pregnant than
died.
not. Yes.
Yes, more pregnant than not, and it, explains a lot. And then and while I was doing it, I said, well, this is 19th century, sort of a failure of ideology for women, i.e., that romanticism kind of didn't really work that well for her. I mean, it was her blossoming. She,
Yeah.
teenage author of Frankenstein, a
Mhm.
original science fiction author, a woman,
Yes.
a young girl even. And I love how this flips.
Mhm.
And and then I thought, well, let me do the 20th century. And I did Emma Goldman
Mhm.
and anarchism, because anarchism got in the way, her politics got in the way of her erotic life, her love
Mhm.
life. She would fall in love with somebody who seemed wonderful, and then they would say, no, you can't go to a protest. And
Mhm.
she would always pick politics. So her life got a little divided there. And then I thought for the 21st century, it had to be science, because I
Mhm.
feel like that's the ideology that's promising us, that may or may not make it through to save us. And I didn't necessarily want to do a live woman scientist. And in the end, I picked an android
Mhm.
because of the place that androids and robots have in the history of movies.
Yes.
You think of Metropolis, you think
Yes.
of, ballets.
Mhm.
It just was, and that's in the film. The trailer, I don't know what, it doesn't quite show that, but
Mhm.
you'll see there's these historical references that come back and forth throughout the film, because it feels like the scientists are almost trying to fulfill the dream, that
Yeah,
we make movies, but we're also created by movies.
we are very much so, very much so. But one of the things in doing this for 11 years, and the beautiful kind of revelation is scientists who are generally kind of go only by facts and what their discovery is now becoming aware that those that live in a spiritual realm are literally operating on a higher frequency, right?
Mhm.
They're frequenting a higher frequency, and that higher frequency is more of love. And when you're in that state of love, you can't knowingly hurt anyone else because it hurts yourself. And they're beginning to understand spirituality isn't woo-woo. It isn't religion. It is
Yeah,
a
really.
state of being of higher consciousness that they
Mm.
now can measure and understand the impact that that higher consciousness has. When I
Mm.
see, as a spiritual person, and I see science and spirit coming together, then I think now we truly do have a good partnership, because
Ah, that's.
that spirituality needs the science sometimes to conduct,
Mhm.
and that whole power of the energy of that consciousness can be the very fuel for the science. So I think that it's when you've got people that are coming from those two sides, it's really quite extraordinary. And again, some of the people I've interviewed that were what I call linear people, just going
Ah,
through life, linear people, and then they made this discovery of
Mm.
this energy apparatus or this energy field or this, that, and it changed their lives and their trajectory altogether. And
I
I
wonder
love
if
that.
climate change is the cause for some of that, that
Um,
scientists studying facts are suddenly realizing it's impacting them
yeah.
now.
I know
It's
for a lot of these people, it wasn't that. It was like, I always say that the universe taps us on the shoulder, gives us a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, and sometimes if you're not paying attention, gives you a cosmic 2x4. And
yeah,
for some of these people, they've, had the nudge, nudge, wink, and some had the cosmic 2x4. But it was a total kind of 180 into a different trajectory in life. And it wasn't always given, oh, climate change, what can I do about it? I think it was just a revelation of the soul finally getting through to them.
good. We
Yes,
need it
yes.
at every level at this point in our
We
lives.
do, don't we? We do.
Yeah.
But it is out there and it comes through with the gift that each one of us has. Your gift is of expression, of bringing those beautiful stories together, the what ifs and the trajectories and
Mm.
the study of human nature, the possibilities and putting it all together. That for some people who are watching some things may go, but this is so chaotic, I can't get it. Right.
Yes.
But at the same time, that chaos actually is speaking to the chaos inside of them and say, I relate.
Right. Or the chaos outside them, our
Yes.
society itself.
Yeah.
Remember that sense of being able to live with chaos came when I moved to New York.
Mhm.
And I had read R.D. Laing, the psychologist from England, and he come to New York and here he was all about how to deal with psychiatric patients.
Right.
He gets to New York and he couldn't stand the chaos. I don't know if
Yes.
that's true. And he left. And I
Right.
thought, no, you have to learn how to spin,
Yes.
how to be in the vortex and keep your center,
Yeah.
of some sort.
There's a monk I interviewed, Michel Pascal, who would take his
Mm.
clients into Times Square amongst the chaos and show them how to be the mountain, how to be the center amongst the chaos. He said meditation isn't in silence. Meditation is in the chaos of life.
I
Right.
love that. That is
Yeah.
a great guy. That's
Yeah.
great. I'll pick that up. That's fantastic. Because I totally agree. And
Mm,
work can do that. It's hard to stay in that chaos. It's hard to
mm,
maintain that space. Although, as you said, when the power is upon you, it's
yeah.
easier.
Well, I think
Def-
that's you obviously have the ability, as most artists do, of just being centered and present with self. You go in and be the silence, be the blank slate,
Mm,
be the darkness around you, and be in that peace.
mhm.
Because the way you can see chaos and conduct it and make sense out of it is from that place of
Yes,
inner peace.
it's true. And where you're comfortable with it,
Yeah.
where it's okay. It is a thing,
Mm,
it's out there. I was also going to talk, I have this wonderful show, Program 5, Suburban Trilogy, which is one of them that has the chaos, which is 3 films, different genres. 2 are found footage, and the last I shot, and it looks at suburban America. I think it would apply to some of
mhm,
Canada. And the first part is home movies in color of like northern Jersey. I grew up there. They're not my
mm,
own, but they're close. They're
mhm,
familiar. And it's post World War II, and you see suburbia growing, the
mhm,
little houses and the plots of land and the people's, water, sort of pools in the back for the kids.
mhm,
And you see lots of kids growing up and game playing. And that I let the soundtrack be this sort of, instead of it going towards nostalgic, I use the soundtrack to push you away from nostalgia so you can actually both see and think about what you're looking at. And that's in like little mixed up chapters because I
mhm,
like to mix things up. And then the second one is while I was working on it, I guess that happens a lot with my series. I don't always have the idea right at front, but
mm.
in the process, things come
The
out.
next phase was
The
revealed
next
to
thing,
you.
a friend came who likes my work would come in weekly with
Mhm,
um, grocery bags of film because he
mhm,
was a bookseller and he would go to garage sales and he would pick up 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter Super 8 film. And he brought me these rolls. And in the rolls, there were these exquisite 100-foot black and white films from Europe between the wars. They were dated like 31 to 38. And I said, this is the second part of the series of Suburbia, because this is the dream of coming to America or
Yeah.
Canada
Mm-hmm.
to escape the old world
Right.
and lose your identity, remake your identity. And so that's the second one. And that really talks also about history. It's also the wonderful thing about home movies, I think, is people are presenting.
Mm.
You don't see the history outside or the argument that just
Yeah.
happened perhaps before they went and went smile. So I was interested in the history, the larger social history, the personal history. And in this case, it's about two sisters growing up. I got enough footage that they just went from being, 8 years old to 18. It was kind of amazing.
Mm.
And sort of the diary, the autobiography of a girl child. So you
Right.
see them grow out of tomboyness into polite bride and things
Oh.
like that. So it really works well. And then the last section, the first is called Cake and Steak, which means restaurants serve everything. And then The Future is Behind You, which is the black and white in the middle, which is really happens before time, but I put it in the middle. And the last is called Surf and Turf, and it's about the Jersey Shore,
Mm.
not unrelated to the Maritimes, what's happening now, with conflicting desires for possession of the water and the shore,
Right.
and conflicting identities. And it's kind of about the non-melting pot of
Mm.
America, where people very close together are still a little bit at odds.
Yes.
And I think of that in terms of Ireland
Mm.
or Israel and Palestine or Sri Lanka or India with the Muslim, how religion, people look the same, live next door, and yet can be very harsh to each other. And what does that mean? And how does that work itself out?
It always
And
confuses me because, if you are truly in quote God source energy, whichever you wish to call its realm, you will understand that it is loving, caringness, kindness,
mm,
consideration, collaboration. And so to have religions where mine is more important than you and I'm going to hate you unless you are like me
mm,
is not what I perceived the message to be.
totally, totally. But just what you said, you have to you have to have a bigger heart to welcome difference.
Yes.
Like I would think from you, you're curious. You
Mm.
want difference is interesting. For many people, difference is scary,
But
which I
why? Because
agree
it's
is
been
very
conditioned to
hard.
be. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
It seemed because actually think about cultures, Middle Eastern cultures even welcome the traveler. I mean, historically, you welcome the traveler. You bring them in. In fact, Walter Benjamin would say that's the beginning of storytelling, is,
Mm.
is traveling and coming back with a new story of
Yes.
different. So
Of
it
the
is,
wonderful different cultures. I mean, for me, it's about I married, a Chinese gentleman. I have three, beautiful half
beautiful.
Chinese, half British kids. We're no longer married, but I immersed myself into his culture because I love discovering other cultures.
Yeah,
Because, it doesn't matter what package we come in, whatever color or sex orientation or anything else. This is just the vessel that we were given to have this experience. But
mm,
in understanding each other's culture, in
yeah.
understanding the spice of each other's lives, it
Yeah.
makes up for a beautiful buffet,
I
right?
totally agree with you. The more difference, the
Yeah.
more the more adventure, the more excitement, the more color, the more
Yes.
liveliness, Life is a festival, is can be a festival. I mean, I know there's sadness, we know
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
And
But
it's
that's
hope
also part of life,
it is, it
right?
is.
I
Yeah.
mean, death can be beautiful. I mean, you look at a fallen tree, and how life comes from it, you know,
Out of it.
out of
Absolutely.
it. Yes. I don't know if you've seen that documentary with Judi Dench on trees. If you
I
haven't,
think but I
highly recommend it
something
because,
on Sable Island, also by a Nova Scotia,
hmm.
written a young woman called Geographies of Solitude.
Mm,
The scientist on the island examines the horses that die. They feed where they die, the grasses are richer.
right.
That was
But
beautiful.
that is the cycle of life. It's that,
Mm,
death is only of the vessel, the essence. So I'm going to sneeze.
God bless.
There we go. The essence of who we are and our spirit and our beingness will continue on. It will
Yeah.
continue to feed, it will go on for another journey. And the vessel we're in will give back to the earth. And
Yes.
we're inclined to look at death um, as the be all and the end all and catastrophic. Now, death before its time or horrible, painful death. Yes, it's suffering we don't want anyone to have. But we sign a contract when we come here for this experience. And
And that we're going to die as part of the contract.
exactly. And whether it's a long life or a short life, it's what we do with the life in between. And I think people are so afraid to experience life and enjoy life. I mean, I come from a family where it's like picket fence, and I was not a bright child and a sickly child. So it was, let's just hope that she makes a good marriage because she's not educated, she's not going to go far in life and all of that, right? So, but I realized at some point, all these low expectations of me was a relief. Because
Ah,
if people don't expect anything from you, you're free to go and do and explore.
what you want to do.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
But when people put heavy expectations on you, and then you
Mhm.
feel, oh, I'm going to let them down, the guilt, or how can I do this? And I think it's that pressure can steer people away from the very gift that they are. But life and death is just a beautiful cycle of life. It's what you do with your life that is important.
Totally, totally. And two things on that, just being a gardener, you know about decay and
Yes.
death for sure. And
Yes, by you
second of all,
compass.
yes, exactly. And you watch it happen.
Yeah,
It's rare, but it's beautiful. It's not
yeah,
rare. It's what happens. But I was also thinking, I remember I don't actually believe in the Buddhist thing that I come back as another person or another bug or another life form. But I always had the feeling, and it turns out science supported me. Sometimes we have these thoughts and they are right. I said my breath goes out,
mm,
and then I just read and I said, so my breath, all this stuff going through my body goes out into the world and flees into other people and other
yes,
things, my plants and whatever. And then I read that the scientists said, indeed, all of us have some of Jesus's breath in us.
right,
Isn't that
exactly.
gorgeous?
Source is
It's
breath.
gorgeous. I
Yes,
mean,
because
whatever your religion,
we're all
if
made from those particles. If we look at the universal chemistry, it is us.
it is
Right?
us.
We have so much in common with each other, but all we're inclined to do is look at our differences. And as
Mhm.
for my afterlife thing is that I know I've lived here over thousands of years. I actually came here as a consciousness to be a part of a job, and that job was to help humanity always connect with the universe, to always have the open soul, which I know that in some lifetimes got lost, and I know I've also been persecuted, but it was the essence of what my reason was.
Mm,
For the job that I came here to do, that was born all over again. And I came in many different vessels, but it
yeah.
was always the essence of what I came here to do that was always the driving force behind each life.
You should read Octavia Butler. Have you read her?
No, I haven't.
Black sci-fi writer from LA, who's died, but her books talk about people alive 1,000, 2,000 years who come back in different generations for something they need to do. They're
Yeah.
wonderful books. You'll really love
And well, that's something I so relate to, which also made it very hard to kind of live here amongst humans that were so cruel to each other. And I kind of like, I'm tired. I'm tired. But it was this lifetime I managed to get my reason back, my purpose back. I had lost it for persecution for so many lifetimes, and this was the lifetime to reclaim it. And
Yes.
then, through the wonderful technology of podcasting, because I was a coach and a counselor before, but through this wonderful technology, I am now being able to bring to the platform the illuminators,
Mm,
that are out there serving other people to ignite their own beautiful divine essence, which is then in contribution and the benefit to all.
mm. Very nice. Very nice. I hope my films do that and live beyond me. They're my children.
Exactly, like my podcast then, it's in my will. Keep them going, find someone to keep doing. But there's 3,000 shows here, and I do not want this library to go. If
Oh
I've
my
gone, I'm
goodness.
gone. I don't want the library to go, right?
Will your daughters or son carry it on?
uh, hmm,
Maybe a grandchild.
Maybe I think more a grandchild. I think more a grandchild. They're all each on their own path, but I think it might be more the grandchild. Because well, he's only two, but at the same time, there's a core thing going on between us that, that is there. The spirit is there. But and it could be a perfect stranger, who knows? But it's just that this is a library of information that where the wisdom does not die. And it's like that's the beauty of film, isn't it? You know, you see shows that are talent shows and people are bringing back songs from 30, 40, 50 years ago and making it their own. We look at the new generation looks at an old movie and gets totally stoked by the movie and the meaning of the movie, but it's different to what it meant to us at the time because
Hmm.
it's coming from their perspective, which is evolved from ours. And so this is what art is so beautiful. Have a conversation around a book everybody's read, and everybody have a different perspective on it, right?
I know it is lovely. When you
Mm,
teach, you get that too. You give,
yeah,
so for editing classes, I'd give them a little piece, and everybody made a different film. It was like their innards were their
yeah,
outers. Oh, I also wanted to say an indigenous thought, and I've now read it a couple times from indigenous people in the Maritimes to Tierra del Fuego, is they literally speak of we come from stars.
yes,
Of course we do. That is our elemental thing. And now
mm,
they even said it may be an asteroid had the life bacteria that, started it all on the
yeah.
US, not the US, on Earth, um, which is also amazing. Another
Yes,
kind of randomness. I mean, I know scientists aren't as fond of random as I am, but I like it.
I
And
love.
one
Well, I am it. So,
I was talking to an astrophysicist, and he was saying something about that scientists judge if things are symmetrical, harmonious, and beautiful. And I pointed out to him, well, that's for artists, that's no longer beautiful. Symmetry means power, and actually, asymmetry is perhaps more beautiful in the modern thought.
mm,
And he then said, well, it is true if the positive and negative electrons weren't uh, asymmetrical numbers, everything would have been stasis.
yeah,
So asymmetry is what starts everything to happen.
mm,
So I love that. I thought,
yeah.
perfect. We know science by intuition, which sometimes is true.
Yes, absolutely. And you look at out of the mouths of babes, and this was it was I've always been a knowingness person, and as a child I would come out with statements that were way beyond my comprehension,
Oh,
but they were for someone who needed to know, and if they asked me to repeat it I couldn't. Did I
yes,
understand what I said? No. It was
right.
just a message they needed to know at the time, and
Fabulous.
and I call that the knowingness. And it's like that is that download. And every artist I know, every creator I know said, this creation is in collaboration with my
Mhm.
download, with my channeling, with my, partnership with the universe, what anybody wants to call it,
Mhm.
because it is the knowledge and the wisdom dancing together to create.
Exactly. Perfectly said. Exactly right.
So it's
And what I
always been your driving force.
Totally, totally. And it remains what I really like about film is it remains a challenge. It's like
Mm,
I don't have a template that each
yeah.
film is the
Cookie
same.
cutter.
And that was troublesome to curators
Yeah.
for many years. They would say, "Oh, everything's different in your work. Each film is different." And I
Right.
thought, yeah. I
But
mean,
that's the
I see it
point.
more, I also see it as a spiral that
Mm,
actually things come back, but they come back at a distance. So
mm.
this film might relate to that film on the spiral, but they're not linear. They're not exact
They're
matches.
connective.
They're connecting. They're patterning in some much more
Mm,
complex way than just A, B, C, D. They're not the order. They might be A, D, and
right.
those complicated math things like what is the system of the numbers, and you're doing it intuitively in your work when you come back to things at different times.
It sounds very dyslexic, which I am, and actually makes sense to me because
I was not dyslexic at all as a kid, but I'm more dyslexic as I get older.
and I am dyslexic, not full blown, but I am dyslexic, and there's certain things that are really troublesome for me, especially like there's words with more than the same. letter in it. It's the order,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But I
Yeah.
also find my life is dyslectic in the order I do things, right?
Okay.
But
I
it's
kind of understand that. I rarely do things at this some I'm orderly, but I don't do things at the same time every day, which
right.
makes taking any kind of pill very difficult for me.
Uh-huh.
I'll eat at different times in the morning and it gets screwed up. So
I
good.
had to, because of this, I actually had to get into a routine.
Oh,
Because
good.
I wasn't a routine person before, and I had kids, routine as much as I could be for them. But with this, it was, I'm a true colors coach, the four key personality traits, and the one
Mm,
trait of order,
yeah.
of order and practicality and being able to file and put things nice, neat, and order was in another building, wasn't even in my sphere. And I've had to kind of bring it on, because in order for the creativity to get out, there had to be some orderly production in order to do it.
You do. You have to have order to accomplish anything.
Exactly. It has its place, right?
It
But
does. That's a good way to put
I
it.
think it's like, don't let the order step into the creativity,
Hmm.
because then it's going to lose its reason. But what you can do is take the creativity and kind of give it a certain anchor, a certain base in which for it to grow from.
Well, I find I have to clean up my house before I can start making artwork. And some of
Interesting.
it is an avoidance before I get there.
Right.
Other thing is I need it to be a little empty so that because my mind is going so fast,
Yes.
I'm confused.
Do you
So the
find that your mind is 24/7? I mean, when I'm
I
driving,
sleep well though. I
oh,
sleep well.
I don't, because if I get 4 hours deep sleep, it's hallelujah. That is
I
nectar.
do. I
But
do.
I am constantly making a movie in my head,
Really?
and I
Wow.
dream in movie mode. And I can tell you even the touch and the taste and the feel, everything. I am there completely.
I'm impressed.
So,
I'm like
well, it's
that.
a nightmare too sometimes because
Yes,
you
I
can.
would think so. I feel like I'm so mobile and vortexical in my thought that I'm just extremely lucky that I can let go. I mean, I do a lot of exercise, no, without question, more as I get older, because it's kind of my meditation. It's the
Yeah,
same as exercise, but I am somebody who can sleep 7, 8 hours a night
bless
every
you.
night.
You are
So
blessed.
I
That
could
that
not
that is a
survive.
gift. Yeah.
I would be ill if I
Well,
didn't.
I am.
You look fabulous. You look very healthy.
But
Relaxed, even.
the physical has challenges, but the spirit has got to fly. And I
Okay.
kind of feel that the physical kind of dampened my energy because it was too much.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so I think it was there to slow me down and keep the energy from exploding, because then I wouldn't be able to reach as many people. So, I think that sometimes those hindrances that come along, they're there for a reason, right?
Yeah, yeah. I have a friend, she says her bad luck is always turns into a kind of good luck in
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah. Yes. Well, out of that's, it's, let's say that we look at the soil and we go, oh, it's just mud. But when you look at the soil and say, it is the base of the seeds that I wish to grow. All right. And I think it's how we see it. I'm a possibility person. I recognize the negativity and I hold people accountable to what their contribution is and where they're at. But it is that if we look at the possibilities, anything is possible. I mean, it's
Oh,
just that the only reason that stops things, the possibilities coming into fruition is our own place limitations.
absolutely. And that's it. I mean, you want to sort of revive your faculties or develop your faculties to the utmost.
Yes.
Use that inspiration, push it, push it, push it. I still feel like my best work is ahead of me.
But that it probably is for several reasons. One, not only the experience and the exploration that you've had, but
Right.
because as we get older, we slow down, we're more purposeful, we're more meaningful, and we're more comprehensive of the gift that we hold in our hand.
I hope so. Sometimes I feel I'm just getting stupider.
But I think that's also part of it.
I think
It's,
possibly
that's probably the reason I get on
the
with my
modesty
2-year-old
of it.
grandson is I could be silly with him.
It's like the acceptance is
Yes.
very
Yeah,
powerful.
why take yourself so seriously, right? Exactly. I mean, my kids know I'm a goofball, so okay, fine.
They probably
Enough
like that
seriousness
too.
in life.
Well, this is lovely, really lovely to talk to you.
Will you
Fantastic.
tell us more about your books? Because we haven't addressed your books.
Okay. Well, wait a minute. Well, I don't know if I can do this, but I will do it. Hold on. Um, hold on. I I have a number of published poetry books. I've been writing poetry since the 70s, and I have a number of published books that are available. If you go to my website, abigailchild.com, the books will be listed, and then you can look for them. Some of them I think are even on Amazon. I'm not 100% sure. So I have mostly poetry books, and then one book of critical writings on film, which I'd have to run around to get. But I just want to get this one. Oh, can we see it? Oh, I don't know.
No, no,
What
no. I'm just seeing
background?
your hands holding something.
I know it doesn't work, eh? Interesting.
Put it in front of you instead of the black. Put it in front of you.
Oh
There
yeah,
we
that
go.
works.
Lift
Yeah,
it up a bit. There
that's
we
sound.
go. Well, no, no, back in front of your chest. There we
Yeah,
go.
that works. And it's a magazine from Spain that I'm going to be selling at my show, and it's got five fabulous articles on the work with the cover pictures from one of the films, and that's fantastic. And also, I'll be selling the critical book called this is called Moving: A Critical Poetics of Film, and one other book I'm selling. Oh, I'm selling a monograph, a very rare monograph from Switzerland, which includes a DVD of the early films out of Metis Press. And again, if you go to my website, you can see these things pretty much listed along with all my poetry books.
Right.
And my
Yes.
most, you know, I have like five poetry books, two chap books, and they're all available. You just have to search them out on Amazon or on the web, but they are all there. The critical books published by University of Alabama Poetics section, and the other ones are published by different publishers across the country, and like I said, in Switzerland as well.
Yeah.
And a
A
couple of them,
motive for mayhem. I love that title.
yeah,
Another one,
Meg.
just mob. Shatter
Okay.
Matrix.
Yes, yes. Oh, wonderful. You're actually looking at them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The mob is a lot of I mean, a lot of looking at the street,
Hmm.
looking at poverty, looking at the block, seeing what it is. This is yes, a motive for mayhem is um it's a collection of works, but with a
Hmm.
lot of drama, a lot of erotics. I'm kind of known for my erotics in my
But
poetry
again,
and
that's
my
where you
film.
tapped into your sensuality, means that all of your senses are out
Yes.
there. And then, from that sensuality, the sexuality comes because it's a form of expression of that sensuality.
Totally. And I try to be witty. I mean,
Yeah,
there is drama in my work, but I'm playing with it always to sort of
right.
keep you alert so that you
Yes.
don't, because I remember young, I mean, there was a headline in the New York Post that said, man plays dead to survive. And at the time, I'm sitting on the subway and I'm thinking, that's what we're all doing. We're
Yeah.
just playing dead to survive. And what a mistake. You want to be alive to be alive. And that quote comes back to me. So
It
I'm trying to,
reminds me of a young lady that I interviewed, which, talking of the subway, and she would be just a sketch artist, and she would just, while she's on the subway on her way to work, sketch people that are just in their day to
I,
day. Maybe the face. There's one that's just all the hands holding onto the bars or
uh,
profile or the back or something, but it's
yes,
capturing people in time. And
yes,
of
yes.
course, now it's ended up being something that's going quite big for her and taken her off on another journey because
Oh,
it's little snapshots of people's lives in motion, right? And this is kind of, I think sometimes we have to see other people's lives in motions to realize we're actually moving ourselves or not moving.
yes, 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 yes. I was just thinking in bed last night, like the Earth is circling. Now, why is it circling? And I thought, okay, gravity. Okay, we
Yeah,
got
yeah,
it.
exactly. Who have been, I mean, as a child, who were your influences? And I mean, there had to be somebody that influenced you on this path.
Well, you know what? As a child, there was in maybe ninth grade, eighth grade, there was an art teacher
Mm,
who just took an interest in me. I don't think I was very good, whatever I was doing, but she took an interest. She lived past my home, so she'd drive me home sometimes. And that was influential that an
yeah.
older woman, because I'm the only artist in a family of 90 people. So
Mm.
it was kind of like, until I was 50, they were still like, and what are you doing now? I'm going to stop
Yes.
making films and sell shoes. I don't know what they were thinking. Now
Yes.
they don't ask me anymore, but they did for a long time. And so she was very important to have an older woman who made art, and to treat me seriously. And similarly, a couple of years later, I did a summer school class, and for some reason, I did an oil painting that was not good, but the guy liked me and took me seriously and gave me a book of art history, a sort of famous book of art history, and dedicated it to me. And that was important. But I think, uh, I mean, in a sad way, I will say, as a woman, it was very hard to find women you could relate to. I mean,
Yeah.
early on, I thought, oh, I'll be a novelist. I
Mm.
wanted, I'll be Norman Mailer. And no, I wasn't going to be Norman Mailer. So it was like crazy, but I didn't. And when I speak to men my age, they have concrete male
Mm.
figures that they emulated or admired. And I don't really have that. I never had that.
But you
Um,
are it now.
I guess I recreated myself. I do
Yes.
feel that, because I was a good girl growing up and I almost had to let go of some of the good girl to become
Well,
something.
that yes, what wanted to come out came out
That's
in your
exactly.
works, right?
There's pictures of me and I think, oh my goodness, look at you.
Who's that? But the art teacher, and that you may not have been good at the art, but it is what you saw. I mean, I had an art teacher at school, and she asked us just to do a picture, and I did a circus in wax crayon, and I did an elephant walking a tightrope, and and I did all of the people out of sync to what they should be doing.
But
And she,
but it was
but it was
you.
a terrible picture. But yeah, but it's what they see. They see the expression in you, right?
Yeah.
It's that this may not be your format, but they see, where your creativity is, that expression. And then it's up to you in your own self-discovery as to where is best for me to express that. And you're only going to know that through exploration.
Totally, totally. Because originally I did photographs,
Mhm.
and when I was at university, I was majoring in history and literature, very academic, which I loved. And reading is my home. I mean,
Mhm.
if I can go anywhere, if I can read, I'm at home. But I found the courses in the art making, I lost time.
Yeah.
Like, I started working at 7 at night, I wouldn't look up until 11. And if I was reading a book, I might look up at 9 and then at 10.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I just said, okay. And then so I applied actually in art for graduate school. And again, I didn't know where, like what
Yeah.
you're saying. I didn't know if it was going to be photography or film or graphics or city design. I didn't know. And then when I found film, I was like, oh, that's it. I can do
Yes,
it.
yes. I have Kimberly Buckley coming on, who's a world-renowned photographer. And she said she started off kind of on movie sets and was doing this and doing that. And then kind of someone put a camera in her hand, and then it was, aha. And then,
Yes, yes.
she was not trained. She kind of trained herself. And then she would literally just walk in to places. I'm here to be your photographer. A woman photographer. I mean, she was the first woman photographer for Sports Illustrated. And it was just, I think it wasn't even the overconfidence or the anything else. It's just that I think when you are a true artist, when you're going in to open those doors, it's not your ability that they first see. It is the essence of your passion or your conviction,
Mhm.
right? That opens that door because it becomes, this is intriguing. I want to know more.
And it also takes courage.
Yes.
Takes a lot of courage. I've had a cousin of mine say, "Oh, I wouldn't have had your courage." And I
Hmm.
hadn't even thought of it that way, but absolutely right.
Yes, I get that too. And I go, but I don't consider myself very courageous. You just go and do, right? You follow the
I
path.
do, but I think it is courageous. It takes, I mean, particularly
Chutzpah.
I think to be an artist because you don't usually make money off of what you're
No.
doing. you sort of have a second job, and so
Yeah.
you're sort of, and also as an artist, you're very vulnerable. I
Mm,
mean, maybe, I don't know about commercial photography, but when you're just telling your own story or your own thoughts, you're very vulnerable. You're kind of saying, here it is, here's me. Do you like me? I mean, it's not that obvious.
yeah.
You get strong and you don't go in the needy space so much, but
Yes.
it's there.
Well, and
It's
we're all wanting to know, are we
motivating.
on the right track? Is this the right thing for us? Am I validated in what I'm doing? Right? And I think that, my mum was a stage actress, and she, I
Oh,
would
really?
say to her, why are you nervous? You've done this thousands of times. And she would say, if I didn't have the nerves, I wouldn't be engaged.
Ah, yes. I have a poet friend who said, use the nerves to make the reading even stronger.
Exactly. Because it means that you are actually immersed in what you're about to do. It's a different form of confidence. It's not an insecurity, which most people read as an
Okay,
insecurity. It isn't.
I'll take that. A good.
But I mean, obviously you're loving what you're doing. You've got all of this coming up. It must be really nice, to be at this stage in your life. And I always say to people, if you want to know how far you've come, sometimes we get stuck. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's next for me. Am
Mm.
I going in the right direction? And I say, stop and pause and look back. Look how far you've come. Look at how much you've achieved. Look at who you are now. And then take all of that and put the one foot in front of the other. Have you paused enough to look back at all that you've achieved?
Well, doing this, putting together the retrospective, yes, and it doesn't even include everything I've done by a long shot, but of film. Uh, but I have paused to look back. I think what is good for me right now is that I'm involved in this new film.
Hmm.
I just spent 2 weeks in Nova Scotia. I brought winter to Nova Scotia. They hadn't had any snow, and the day after I
Oh,
get there,
you're the one that did that,
I'm the
huh?
one. They called me the snow whisperer.
Don't come to
But
Victoria, please.
not right away. But having that film as sustenance is very helpful because I can look back and say, this really is a lot. It really looks good. And I can sort of step back and step forward. And I
Yes,
think that's helpful because I
yes,
don't get stuck in the past either. And I can be a little bit light with it. It doesn't have to be, it's not my full definition. It's
yeah.
part of the ongoing trip.
Yeah. Have you written your memoir yet? Oh, I've lost your volume, Han. There you go.
Now, that was like cleaning my laptop. I flipped.
You see, just something you see you need to do in the moment, I know. Have you written your memoir yet?
No, but I do have a book of sort of, again, a prismatic autobiography,
Right.
writing. Um, which hasn't been printed yet. I have a couple of manuscripts that could go to press, and I'm working on some more. But yes, it's got, I think of it kind of as the unconscious, the ego, and the id, where the unconscious is trying to get into my childhood, and the id is actually a period when I was living in Russia.
Mm,
And so it's talking about Russia falling apart. This is the early 90s, the deterritorialization of an ideology. So it's kind of the id being dissected. And then the ego is more, maybe a more straightforward poet biography. But anyway, that's as close as I've gotten. And actually, I will say the Suburban Trilogy is as close. It's not an autobiography. It's not my family's home movies. It's not my family's history, but it's as close to a
a
biography.
reflection of.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a very familiar territory. It's territory I grew up in that I'm sort of reclaiming and
Mm.
dissecting.
Yeah, I've just done my memoir. I'm in the editing phase, and in reading it back, because I just let it come out, and then in reading it back, there was a lot revealed to me that kind of, I was unaware of, but it was always it doesn't matter, where that darkness is. It's always to remember, you are the light in the darkness, which at times we forget. And
You
it's
do it by transcribing into a microphone and then transcribing it?
no, I was going to do that way, but I actually just took a week off doing the podcast and told everyone to leave me alone, and I just got on the computer and wrote.
I'm impressed.
So
Very.
I thought I was going to do it the audio way and had intended to do that, but the fingers started typing and off it went 66,000 words later. And it's like now trying to edit it. But it's interesting in looking back because I just let it pour out. And then when
Yes.
looking back, it's like, oh, oh, oh,
Ah, yeah.
and I
That's
think that
fun.
yeah, I mean, that's how, you must do that when you look at a film when it comes together. You know the pieces that it's taken and to put together, but now you can sit back and see the whole of it. Do you get some ooh
And also,
moments?
editing can really transform writing and film. Like
Yeah,
you can have one thing and then you start to change it with the editing and it transforms. It just
yes,
becomes something else. And that is amazing. That
yeah.
that's one of my pleasures. Really great.
And then
Great.
the different reactions that everybody has to it,
Oh, for sure.
which is
That,
wonderful. It's like that piece of music that everybody's listening to in a different way, right? And yeah,
well, it's also like your best friend will hate the film you love and
y-
you'll, or love the film you hate. I
yeah,
mean, it can happen.
yeah.
If close can differ.
Yes. But I think
Because
instead of, being up in arms about the difference is to understand why. Because very often their reaction is a reflection of what's going on in their own lives.
of course, and their take on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I also think it's because films, particularly maybe, um, have so much going on in them.
Yeah.
There's image, there's performance, there's sound, there's content, that it touches people in all different ways. So,
Yes.
we're so complex, and then the films are maybe not as complex as a person, but pretty complex so that they touch people differently. I think that's why sometimes your best friend doesn't like what you like and you're shocked.
Yes, exactly. But why do we love books? Why do we love film? Why do we love music? Because very often it speaks in a language that we cannot find for ourselves. It is that expression of where we want to be or who we are right now or the struggles or the strife. We say, oh, it's just entertainment. But no, I think, the best book and the best movies and the best, TV shows or anything else are the ones that leave you talking about them, the ones that leave you thinking, the ones that you feel even disturbed from.
Yeah.
It's because
Oh, no, it's where you learn how to think, or you learn to think in comradeship with someone.
yeah.
It's like very exciting when you get that to happen.
Well, people can go to your site, abigailchild.com. I'm going to spell it for the people who are listening. ABIGAILCHILD.com. You're also on Vimeo, Abigail Child, blogger profile, which is just blogger profile, but it's right here on the thing, and full lineup of your work here I've got here as well. So everything is here for people to find you and to listen to you. Now, when is the
Show
whole
is March 24th to the 28th.
wonderful?
A week from this Friday begins, ends on Tuesday. 8 shows, 1 show Friday, 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday, 2 Monday, and 1 Tuesday. And it's sort of chronological at Anthology Film Archives at Second Avenue and Second Street in Lower Manhattan, East Village. Very exciting, great food, great
Now, is
restaurant.
there a place that people can go and sign up, or is it just turn up? How is it?
Yes, go Anthology on the web and anthology.com, I guess, and you can buy a ticket. You can see much more detail what's on each show, so you get a better sense of what it is. And yes, you should buy it online. You can do that. It's not being zoomed. It's not being streamed.
Right. It is an experience that you have to go and experience in person.
And I will be present at all the shows to
Wonderful.
answer questions. And in the very first show that Friday night, I spent a year in Italy, so we're going to do a little after show reception with Prosecco, green olives, and roasted almonds, which is
Mm.
what, well,
That sounds wonderful.
That's
So,
the fun.
folks, if you're in New York and you're listening to this book, go and see it. Go and have an experience. Take your friend, even if they're a linear person that never ever thinks out of the box. Take them and let them have a shake up, a little wake up, an expression of something else out there, and uh, and then the open conversation that you can have from it. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to see things from a different point of view. You can put the hate down, though, right?
Wonderful. Also, if you come because of this podcast, please come up to me afterwards and let me know. I think that would be very fun.
Wonderful.
Who's
Yes.
from Vancouver watching who will end up be great. Thank you again.
That's what it's all about, is the sharing and the expressing. And, one of the things we've also forgotten to do is, kind of respond, kind of comment, invite people to comment on the show, invite people to comment on your work, because it's through those comments that we actually do learn, how the impact we're having on people. So please don't be afraid to go up to her and say, I was confused, or I love it, or I related to it, or I hated it, or whatever it is, don't be afraid to approach and to speak, because that's how we grow as people.
And also, there will be question and answers. That's what
Wonderful.
they do in the experimental world. Fortunately or unfortunately, there'll be questions and answers after every show, so you can always do it publicly or afterwards.
Right. Wonderful. Well, I love it, but as I said, artist, because you are your work, you are your instrument, and the expertise of your instrument has grown through the experience of your life. And, people, whether they're coming to it for the first time or whether they followed the journey, it's always that expression of how you see things that is inviting other people to take a look. And what do they see? Pull back the curtain. What do you see? And it's, those different perspectives, those different understandings of what they're seeing, or even if the confusion. It's okay if you're confused. But what it's done is it's pulled back the veil on something that isn't linear, and it's showing you that really we're here to tango, two-step, cha-cha-cha. We're not meant to just blindly, sheepily walk with our heads down, moving forward. It is about the dance and the rhythm of life, and get into it.
Lovely, lovely. I just invited my family. I said, come to the song and dance.
Yes, exactly. And that's what
Great.
film is. So thank you so much for sharing here with us today.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful time at this event. And, you can stand tall, you can stand proud. It's going to be a wonderful moment for you, especially when it's over and you can look back and go, I did that. I did that. Right?
But
And so, take that pride into it. And for everyone else out there, whatever kind of artist you are, allow the art to guide you. Be experimental, explore. It doesn't matter if you suck at it at first. Maybe it is purely the catalyst to where you're meant to go, but just be willing to explore the art within you and let it out. Thank you so much, Abigail. And to everyone else out there, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. Find all of our shows on selfdiscoverymedia.com under podcasts or selfdiscoverymedia/shows. And for all our current shows, go to What's New. We are supported by you, the audience. You'll see a nice big shiny blue button for one-time donations, or follow us on Patreon and you will be able to support us there. We enjoy bringing you such wisdom, and the next show will be up in just a moment.